Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. Today we're going to put a bow on the TvT and TvZ builds. We're going to show a couple of replays of my most recent games here and basically just go over like the final iteration of these builds and how we're playing it out. Okay, so we'll focus on my side of the map. So this is against random, so we've talked about this in other videos, and we learned this from Pig. When you're up against random, you send a scout out after you make the first depot, and that gives you a chance to hit a correct double gas timing once you identify what race it is. So we did our 16, 16, 17 double gas opener. Factory's on time. Gas pull is fine. Low ground expand at 220, all that's fine. Okay, his Reaper harass didn't get the kill. We're going into our standard 1-1-1 setup. We're going to scout with the two Reapers, pull that Cyclone back. Two Reapers honestly don't see much. Taking our third gas and still doing standard Marine Tank Raven right now. We've added a bunker to the front because what we've noticed is our Marine count is pretty light. So when we defend the pokes at the front, the bunker there is helpful. It doesn't slow us down too much. That's a good adaptation for our MMR. And then we want the tanks to cover each other. And then we're going into the 3-base transition. So the 3-base transition is basically you drop the third, you drop the second and third racks, the double eBay, and you take the fourth gas all at once. So if you look at production, this is basically what you want to see. Command center, 2 racks, 2 eBays, right? These are finishing. The refinery is finishing, and then double depot production. And that depot is finishing as well. So that's basically how we're going up to 3-base. And in this game, we decided to go Viking instead of Raven. So right now we have 3 tanks, 2 Ravens, some bio. We still have the Cyclones left over. We lost the Reapers to the Scout. And then now we're just going to make Marine Tank Viking and then mix in some medevacs. Okay. So we're basically on our 2-base setup. We've got 4 tanks, 5 tanks. We take our third, we leave the 3 tanks in a defensive position. And then with the third going, we're taking our armory, our 4th and 5th racks, and our 5th factory. And a sensor tower. So this is a good 3-base setup. Opponent came in with 3 Cloak Banshees and got 7 worker kills. But that's not a big deal. We're just macroing up. And then with our 3-base setup, and then the 4th dropped, we're going to go push and fight. Okay, so here's the first fight. So this is Viking style. So with Viking style, we killed all the medevacs. We won there was no contest on the air war. And then he's just doing a good job of repairing he's got a planetary on the third, and he did a good job of repairing it. So then now we drop our 4th, and we identify his other base, and we rotate over to it. And we're still winning the air war, so we can take our siege position and just hold it. So let's look at the upgrades. So it's pretty even, right? He's got Banshee upgrades, and he's got looks to be like a double armory setup. Yeah, so he's got a double armory setup. He's got a fusion core. He is on a 3-2-2 setup with triple armory, actually. And then we're on the 521, and we're adding now armory and 2 starport. And on the 2 starport, we're going to go 1 reactor, 1 tech lab. So we're still going to have the option of making Ravens, but we're going to try and continue to win the air war. We haven't done any depot drops, which is good. We didn't do call down supplies. And we have good 3-base saturation, and we're taking the planetary on the 4th, and we'll go ahead and get that set up. As far as units, 58 Marines to 10. Well, bio, right? So 58 Marines to 10 Marines and 5 Marauders. 11 tanks to 7 tanks. We lost our Cyclones at some point. 7 Vikings to 1. 3 medevacs to 3 medevacs. 69 SCVs to 62 SCVs. And then in upgrades, the upgrades are basically even for bio tank, but we are going up to +3, and +2, and opponent has not started that yet. Okay. So we're going up to a 5-2-3. We don't really have to do much else other than that. We are going to add the 3 racks and do all reactors. Okay, now we take up this siege position. And then basically you just want to hold position with Marines, try and win the air battle, which we barely lose. And then because we lose the air battle, we just back off. We did what we wanted to do, which was siege that base. So now we drop a bunch more command centers. We can still go on the map. We're building air still. And we can see how just having the Vikings is very effective. It resets his entire tech count. So now if we look at units, it's 76 to 44 SCV. 76 is where we stop. We have 14 Vikings, 2 Liberators versus no air control, 5 tanks versus 2, 18 Marines versus no bio, and we have 1 Raven. So our air control is the Viking Lib Raven, and then we have Marine tank medevac still. And then here we're starting to learn, like, okay, we use our libs. He kills those with bio. We try to shove into here, but the turrets kind of discourage us, and we should really just be sieging up those turrets. So now we're going to take our edge bases. We're on an 8-2-3 with the double armory set up. We've already transitioned into the sky weapons and armor. We're getting 2-2 sky weapons and armor. We already have 3-3 infantry. Going up to fusion core to get lib range, and we queue up lib range and medevac. We queue up lib range and medevac reactors. And then we've just got enough bio tank to clean that up. And then that's basically the end of the game. Opponent floated their main and their natural to these expansion locations. So opponents on 3 base, we have our half of the map, which is 6 base, and we have 2 additional orbitals. We have plenty. We don't have we don't have a lot of excess money because we're rebuilding our army right now. So if we look at how we're using our production facilities, this is basically a full usage of our production facilities, right? So we're going up to 2-2 air upgrades with lib range. We haven't picked up smart servos yet, but that's the only other upgrade that we would need. We're not making Marauders. And then if I look at units again, 76 to 34 SCVs. He's on a single Thor. He's got 3-3 mech, and he's trying to go up. He's basically got 3-3 bio, 3-3 mech, and then he's adding in the sky weapons. He was playing Marauders, but did not have concussive shells, so for him that's a pretty big mistake. And then if we look at my production facilities, every production facility is currently making something. So I've got the Ravens queued up. I've got the Vikings queued up with a couple of libs at the end. I've got all Marines queued up. And I've got 2 tanks queued up. So my money has basically gone into remaxing my army. My army right now is pretty small, but in 2 production cycles, it's going to be fully remaxed again. And then we didn't really play it much more efficient as far as trades go, which is fine for TvT. It's going to be hard to find an asymmetrical advantage to have a units lost efficiency advantage over the opponent, but instead what we did was all positional play, right? So we sieged up the 3rd, we sieged up the 4th, we killed this 5th, rotated back and forth to the edge bases, tried to push into the natural, got stymied by a few turrets and a few siege tanks. We could have just sieged outside of their tank range, but in the turret range, and just killed all that with the air control over here. But also, we kind of understood our position in the game and that it didn't really matter. So that's how we're playing TvT, and it's going according to plan. The only decision point is basically, do we go into Vikings or do we go into Medivacs, right? So that's the only thing that's a variable. And then when we go into an 8-rack setup, do we want Marauders or not? I think the answer is basically always going to be no. And the reason is there's just other stuff to spend the gas on. So we don't want our infantry to be a gas sink. We want to make sure that we want to make air our gas sink. So we want to make sure that we're reserving the gas specifically for Vikings. Okay, so that's how we're playing TvT. Okay, so now for TvZ. All right, again, we'll watch our side of the map. So for TvZ, we're still doing our 2 factory open. The 2 factory open is Battle Mech, which is Hellion Cyclone. And then from Battle Mech, we transition into Tank Banshee. And then from Tank Banshee, we'll go into Hellbat Thor, basically. And then possibly Ghosts. So this game kind of has everything from that perspective. I've got a bad rally, but I fixed that. That was a bad SCV rally. So a little sloppy on the open. We lost the Reaper on the other side of the map. Opponent gets in with those Lings, but we're better about not losing our first 2 Hellions. If you lose the Reaper and the first 2 Hellions, the game is basically over. But the first 2 Hellions, if microed properly, can deal with the Lings. And we're setting up for our move out, which is always going to be with 5 Hellions and 3 Cyclones. Let's see. And then behind that, we go Tank, Hellion, Marine, close off the wall, and we can put a bunker and then get the tanks positioned for the counteroffensive. We're basically always going to be assuming counteroffensive now. So we pressure the 3rd, kill the Lings, kill some drones, and feel like killing the Lings was sufficient, so we go back to our side, where we're trying to set up defensively and then go into the next phase of the game, which we're just going to continue to go up from 2 factory to 5 factory plus the starport. The 1-3-1 transition makes more sense off of a 1-1-1. So if we go 1-1-1, then we want to go 1-3-1, but since we're doing 1-2, we're going to go 1-5-1 after that. We take our 3rd, we build the wall. He had the Lings there, which is exactly why we build this wall over here, which prevents the run by from this angle so that we only have to focus on the front. So we're fixing our wall off for our natural and for our third. We have our 3 tanks set up by B to GM style. We've got our barracks covering the flank over there. And we've got Marines in a bunker at this wall, and we should have 2 tanks over here. So ideally it would be 3 tanks in a bunker here, tank, 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 and a bunker here. Where this tank, we're rallying to it, and it's basically defending this choke. And that's what we need to do, is just defend this choke. Opponent's setting up a lurker drop, and we spot that with our spotting depot, or spotting barracks. And then he comes to the front with Hydraling Lurker, but our composition is basically perfectly suited to deal with that. So what we're anticipating is that opponent is going to go into a ranged composition like Roach Hydra or Roach Ravager or Hydra Lurker, just like they're doing. So we're kind of anticipating that, and that's why our mid game is focused on tank Banshee production, and you can still add battle mechs. So like you don't have to stop making Hellion Cyclone, but the focus is on tank Banshee in this phase. And then what we need to do is get up to 5 bases. And we don't do that perfectly this game. Opponent keeps a lot of pressure on us. But right now we should drop double command center over here basically, so that we're ready to double expand, and instead we single expand. But if we took this base as well and got it established, then we would really have good control of the game. So we're just trying to cover the two outside bases with tanks. We're going up to 3-3, and now we're adding on our additional production. We're adding on 3 additional factories. In the next game, I think we transition much better. So here we just try to take out this forward base. Barely get a cleanup on the army, and the opponent actually used a parasitic bomb on our Vipers, so good for them. If we had our 5th base already set up, we would be in an amazing position. And then now we're trying to add ghosts, and we had already added more starports. So now we're going to try to do the transition into Hellbat Thor Ghost. We're accidentally queuing up Ravens. That was intended to be Banshees, but really what it should be is Medivacs, because we want the Medivacs to have sustain on the Hellbat Ghost. With Hellbat Ghost, that can both benefit from the Medivac. That's what we want to do. And we also, basically, what we're thinking now is, yeah, we're using the Banshees early. We're getting cloak and speed, but we don't need to upgrade the Banshees beyond that. We don't need Banshee weapons. What we want to do instead is transition into Ghost Medivac, basically. So opponent's got the whole rest of the map. We're trying to get our 5 base set up. And then we're going to start trying to use the fact that the Ghost Cloak is difficult to deal with if we kill the Overseer. We also made some more Ghost Academies. So where are the extra Ghost Academies? Yeah, we made some extra Ghost Academies, and we queued up 3 nukes. So right now, it's 2 worker kills for me. And then the Ghost, we're just going to queue up a bunch of nukes. So he's fighting on the front, and then he's got nukes dropping on his edge bases. We went from 2 worker kills to 35. So we killed 33 drones with those 3 nukes that we sent to the edge bases. And then that hurts his economy quite a bit. And then now we're in our correct endgame setup, which is Hellbat Thor with ghosts, and then there's a few tanks left still. So this composition is extremely hard to deal with. Opponent is going up to Neural Parasite, but it's not in time. He can only use fungals on my army, and that's not good enough. He really needed to neural the Thors, and I've got the EMPs to counter the infestors. So yeah, This game, if we got our 5th base, basically what we want to do in this setup is go from 3 base, double expand in safe spots, like put the 2 command centers here and here, and then take them at the same time. And we showed a game where we did that, and that's great. That's how you want to do it. Get the 2 forward planetaries up with sensor towers and just rotate back and forth defending the bases. That'll give us plenty of economy. And then for our transition, what we want to do is we don't want 3 starport. We only want 1 starport. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the starport off the tech lab, have it build a reactor, and then go up to 8 factory, 5 barracks for ghosts. And in the next game we do that. This game was cool because we kind of secured the end game win with the ghost using nukes to stunt his economy towards the end so that he couldn't keep throwing strong waves of armies at us. Okay. This opponent is also playing random, so we do our early depot scout. We're in position to take double gas, but we saw the overseer, so we don't need to do that. So we're going to go into our standard 2 factory setup. So Reaper orbital expand. Take the depot with that returning SCV. The depot is fast enough where that guy can be the factory builder. Take the gas. Reaper sees queen first, basically no lings. Second factory is building on time. Got the Hellions queued up good. Little slow on the Cyclones, very slow on getting this started. But that's all fine. Saturation is good. Wall looks good. This time we're building the bunker. And we don't move out with the Marines. So our move out is 5 Hellions, 3 Cyclones, which is perfect. And then we jumped our Reaper in and we saw the early layer. And then our move out is just checking the 2 third locations. He doesn't have a third, so we suspect it's either like Hydra Lurker or Muta. What it ends up being is Hydra Lurker. So we're already trying to be defensive with Tank Bunker. We take our 3 extra factories and starport. Get our production facility, get our upgrade structures, and we want to take our upgrades as well. So there's 1-1. Flame, servos would be good as well. Here comes his shove, so he shoves in with Hydra Lurker. Move the command center out of harm's way, just inch up a little bit, take all that out. Okay, so he took a sneaky third during that. He's going up to Hive, and his Hive tech is initially going to be Ultralisk Cavern. So his economy is not good. He's on 57 drones on 3 bases, and he doesn't really have any tech units right now. For me, I'm more in a defensive posture. I want to be setting up tanks all along the front, and then I want to build up enough Banshee to cross the map and harass with Banshee. So that's what we're working towards. We're going to drop the 4th here soon. So we're just fixing our saturation, double depot production, drop the 4th, focusing mainly on tank Banshee production, getting all of the upgrades that we need. We've got a really great spread of tanks here, and it's important that we do because opponent is getting ready to throw his next army at us, which is going to be Ultra Lingbane, right? So if I look at his upgrades, he's got chitinous plating, so his ultras have +3 armor, right, from the chitinous plating, but he doesn't have armor upgrades done yet. He's not building them, but he's building a ton of ultras. He's taking sneaky bases, and here comes his shove, and he's shoving into a ton of tanks. But we still need those Banshees to help clean it up. We went on the other side of the map with our Banshees. We checked the third location. He wasn't there. We went into the main, and we actually sniped the Ultra Cavern with the Banshees, so we don't have to worry about follow-up Ultras. And at this point, we're doing our transition better now at this point. So now we're going into Hellbat Thor Ghost. We've already transformed all of our Hellions into Hellbats. We're going to keep the 2 safety tanks there with the bunker, but we could be putting Marines in this bunker. We could be repairing this tank. We need to rebuild this sensor tower. We put one over here. We didn't do any depot call downs, which is good. We've got our Ghost Academy. We've got our 5 barracks. And we've got 5 factories. So what we're going to do is this starport's going to float over, make its own reactor, and then the vacated spot will get filled with a factory. We drop our 4th, convert it into a planetary, take the gases, sensor tower, should add turrets as well. Extra bases, and the sensor tower sees the sneaky expansions. So now our army moves out. It's pretty strong, and it's good enough to just with the Thors. We don't put the Thors in high impact payload mode until we know what we're dealing with. So we keep them basically in anti-mutalisk mode until we know exactly what we're dealing with. But this is basically Spooky Mech, which is I've got Cloak Banshee, I've got Ghost Cloak. The mutas basically instantly evaporate to all of the splash damage from the Thors. And this guy was basically not playing economy, which is what Zergs usually do, but he was playing tech. But the tech choices he made kind of played right into my hand, where I'm playing defensive mech style. His big attack would have crushed anything that Bio is doing, but instead he ran into a heavily fortified 2nd and 3rd choke position with tons of tanks and Banshees, and the Banshees are obviously really good against Ultraling Bane. And then, he tries to tech switch into air. He's going to try and tech switch into mutas and then Broodlords most likely. But yeah, we basically dealt with all the stuff that we thought is scary. The last game, the guy had spellcasters. He had Viper Infester. This game, opponent did all of the different tech rushes for Zerg. And we're basically just using Battle Mech effectively at the beginning of the game to pressure the 3rd. Then take a defensive position by adding in Banshees and tanks. And then go into a late game composition of Hellbat Thor Ghost, where when you play Hellbat Thor Ghost, you also want medevacs, and medevacs are crucial for Hellbat Thor Ghost to have sustain so that you can heal through Zerglings. If you don't have sustain through the Zerglings, then you will lose your Thors. But if you have medevacs keeping your Hellbats health topped off, then they can continue to tank and you won't lose your Thors, and then that's why the endgame composition of Hellbat Thor Ghost is so good. And at that point we can also still have tanks mixed in defensive positions. We don't need to move out on the map with the tanks. It's much better to move them into more forward positions guarding our edge bases at this point in the game. So yeah, we're not going to build Banshees after this. We're not going to get Banshee weapons. Our upgrades are going to look more like this, where we've got the standard mech upgrades, 2-2, Blue Flame, Smart Servos, and Cyclone Speed. We've got Banshee Cloak and Banshee Speed, and we've got Ghost Cloak, Building Weapons and Armor. And then the only other things that we would need is we would add fusion core specifically for medevac reactor, and then obviously we need 3-3 as well. So yeah, we're getting up to all of that, and then in macro practice, that's exactly what we do. Is we swap this, put it on a reactor, add 3 factories, and then drop a fusion core. And we also should be doing double eBay. So double eBay fusion core for 1-1 for ghosts and medevac reactor. That's how we handle our bio upgrades. Lots of nukes. So multiple ghost academies for additional missile silos, essentially. And then just continue to do our macro practice, put our planetaries in forward positions, take additional bases for additional orbitals. And then we don't need to add any other production outside of our 5-8-1 or 5-8-3 setup. So 8 factories is the maximum amount of factories, 5 barracks is the maximum amount of barracks, and then for starports we can either do 1 or 3. And the reason that we would do more starports is if we're in a position in the game where the Banshees are extremely useful. I don't think we want to switch into Libs or Vikings necessarily, unless it's absolutely critical based on the state of the game. The Terran builds are modular, and this is an example of how we walked up our tech path, basically. And that path up the tech tree was particularly good in this game against what our opponent was doing. In the last game, opponent was much more aggressive on our side of the map, and we were able to equalize the game state with the tactical nukes. And then, obviously, in TvT, we have a pretty scripted way of playing it, where we go bio-tank into the Tier 2 air transition. So, yeah, this is going to be the last video for TvT and TvZ. I think we have exactly what we want, and then basically our ability to continue to climb the ladder is going to depend on our skill less than our build at this point, and then also we're being dragged down by our TVP win rate. So we're approaching 60% win rates in TvT and TvZ, and we have a 35% win rate currently in TVP. So TVP is going to be our emphasis going forward. We're going to start by just working with our Mind Drop build and not build Tank Raven and just treat it like a coin flip. So if we treat TVP like a coin flip matchup, that's going to be better than the 35% win rate that we currently have, right? So we currently have a losing win rate in TVP. So why bother playing safe with Tank Raven if we can't win from a Tank Raven position regardless? So let's just go for it, go for the Mind Drop, try and limit their economy in the early game, and that'll give us a position to win with Ghost Viking Lib in the late game. If we just let their economy go nuts, they're going to get up to Gateway plus Splash into Stargate transition. We're never going to beat that with our current skill level, so we need to do economic damage to them early, play the 3-1-1 2-base setup, try to get early economic damage, try and follow that up with a BIOS push, and then go into Ghost plus Air to try and close the game out. So that's the game plan. It's been really fun developing these builds and doing it in the context of these YouTube videos, but I also don't want to spam my channel with just like daily replay reviews of games that I win. That's not the point. The point of this was to develop the builds, right? So we're in a place where I'm very happy with the progress of the TvT and TvZ builds. The TvZ build especially, we did like a learning process of building up to this, where we did the 2-factory open with Battle Mech. Then we learned about the different types of transitions. So we did Battle Mech into Power Mech, which was like Hellion Tank Thor, right? And then we added the Starport for Banshee. And then now at the end of the game, we're adding the Ghost Academy and the extra racks for ghosts. So learning the transition for TvZ, learning the different possible transitions for TvZ on how to play mech has been really great. And then learning about positional siege play in TvT, why the Vikings are important. But then also, I didn't put it on the channel, but I've got a video where we did the two base all in style with medevacs. We get into the siege standoff, and then we just lift and doom drop into the main and won a game like that. So in TvT, if we're playing Viking style, we're playing for positional play. And if we're playing medevac style, we're playing ape style to shove, win the fights, and then doom drop. So try to move. When you're playing medevac style in TvT, you're trying to outposition their army, get around them, get like into the back door basically. And then when you're playing Viking style, you're just trying to. That's how you shove the edge bases and hold a position. So yeah, the learning process has been great. We're gonna start adding TVP content, but we've got to get the replays and we've got to get the confidence that we're putting out a good product when we do the TVP replays. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Really appreciate your attention. Have a great day.